pros and cons in this, and we must look at all of them.
Damien Green.
I rather agree with Anne's wider point that it's impossible to debate immigration and simply do it in economic terms. You know, there is more to life than economics.
Absolutely.
And as ever, when you have two economists, you'll get three different views anyway. But as I say, the weight of the evidence is that it is slightly positive. But I think to conclude from that we would then get more benefits from ever-increasing numbers of immigration is wrong, because not just for the economic arguments, but also for the wider social arguments, because what we've seen historically is that in periods when people don't have confidence that our borders are under control, that the immigration system is well run, then social tensions increase, particularly in the inner cities, particularly in poor areas.
Well,
and anyone sensible wants to avoid that.
That's a fair point. I mean, nobody's suggesting that 400 million people from the European Union are going to move here tomorrow, but in theory they could, and there's nothing to stop them, is there?
Yeah, 75 million people, East Europeans, could come here, and so far 600,000 have come, and most of those have already gone back. In fact, only 100,000 have moved and stayed for over a year.
But you must understand why people are concerned about this.
The problem with the idea is that there's this scaremongering going around that somehow if you have open borders, everyone's going to come live in this country and stay forever. The vast number of migrants actually come here to work for a short period of time and then want to go home. They're in effect international commuters. Now, if you shut the border, it is actually true. If you shut borders, you give people a choice between either staying forever or staying at home. It's the same thing as if London said tomorrow, if you want to work in London, you have to live in London. Well, people who live in the suburbs will have a choice between moving to London or not having a job in London at all.
What do you want the politicians to do? I mean, what do you want them to do as a change of policy?
The change of policy has to be this. The government have to say, we are going to place an overall limit on immigration. Now, it'll take time to implement that. They're going to have to put in place the levers necessary, the policy levers necessary to do it. That means, for example, checking people, identifying people as they come and go. They're going to do that in a few years' time.
But do you have a figure? I mean, do you have it in your head? What's
yes,
the figure?
I do. I think what we should aim to do is to go for a number that doesn't, in the long term, doesn't add still further to our population. Now, roughly 100,000 Brits leave every year. Now, we should be able, roughly within that, to get immigration down to a similar level. We're already immensely crowded in this country. There's very, very strong public opinion against these levels of immigration.
Okay.
It's time the government took a clear policy.
And Cry? 100,000?
No, I don't like the idea of having upper limits of this or that. Let's look at the quality. Let's say that people entering this country must be able to do a job. They must have a skill and they must have our language as well. We must have a common language. And also people who enter this country, they must be protected. If they don't have the language, what about health and safety? And there we must look to the trade unions. I'm hoping that the trade unions will be enabled to unionise many of these low-paid workers, particularly in fruit picking and that sort of area.
Okay,
because at the moment, I do think they're being badly dealt with, the people who are coming in.
I do think we need controls and we need limits.
Limit, so 100,000?
No. Well, I think where I disagree with Andrew is to say you can fix a limit and say that's the limit. What we've suggested is that the Home Secretary, after consultation every year, should set an annual limit of those who come from outside the EU. And I think it's particularly important to make this
outside the EU, because you can't do anything about those who come from inside the EU.
And what we've seen over the past 2 years is a huge number of people come from Poland and the other accession states. Now, that probably won't be repeated. In 5 years' time, it may well be that a lot of them go back and we'll find that we're short of plumbers again or something like that, in which case you might well want to say, well, we actually want more people in from the rest of the world. I think you just need to be more flexible and set an absolute limit.
I agree that. I mean, you can't lay down exact numbers. I agree that's a very good approach indeed. But I think what we need to be very careful about is importing people to do the jobs nobody wants to do. Because where's that leading? Are you going to import an underclass of people? And if so, are their children going to be willing to do this kind of job?
Okay.
I think it's immoral. What we should be doing is raising wages so that our own people do these jobs.
OK, we'll leave it there. Thank you all very much. Now,